Okay, so as I was saying, that we know that property taxes and the cost
Yeah,
of living are the
this
top
meeting is
concerns
being
for older adults in New
recorded.
Jersey,
Okay,
and one
good.
of the reasons they can't or choose not to retire in the state. So today we have with us two experts on navigating your way through the maze of property tax relief for older adults. I know it can sound daunting. It is daunting, but we're very happy that these programs have been expanded and there's more than ever to offer. We want to make sure people take advantage of them and that you share this information with your neighbors, friends, and other people who aren't here today who can benefit from tax programs. So I'd like to introduce you to Ellen Steinberg and Peter Humphreys. We're going to walk us through the property tax
Can everybody mute, please?
And yes, I'm going to keep muting people as they come on. Please keep yourself on mute. And I'm going to turn this over to Ellen and Peter. Go ahead.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank the NJAAW for inviting us to speak. We all know the issue of property taxes. Welcome to New Jersey. Let me tell you a little bit about who we are and where we come from. Senior Citizen Council is a nonprofit organization founded some 50 years ago when things were quite a bit different for older Americans. When you reach 60, you were really, really old back then. Now, 60's the new 40, 80's the new 60. And our mission is to provide information to older adults, their caregivers, and their loved ones. And to this end, I don't know whether any of you have seen a senior news. We publish a newspaper 5 times a year. We run a number of programs. And over the last few years, Peter Humphreys, who's the editor of Senior News and a finance attorney, and I have been working on property taxes issues here in New Jersey because there are a number of property tax relief programs that are out there to help us. And we looked at it as our mission to encourage as many people as we could to take advantage of this. And just to give you an idea of the property tax relief programs, which we're going to go through in some depth, let me give you Peter right now, and he'll give you a quick overview.
Yeah, hello, everybody. Can I ask everybody to just put yourself on mute, because every time you speak you override us. So if you're not on mute, can you please check now and put yourself on mute? Great, thank you, appreciate it very much. Okay, we're going to talk about.
Kathy, could you give us the first slide?
Yeah,
thank you.
There we go. Oh yeah, there we go.
Can you see
okay.
it?
Thank you. That's great. You got it. Okay, we're going to talk about 5 programs today. The 5 existing programs that exist in New Jersey. There's Senior Freeze, which is Senior Freeze giving you money from a year, the difference between your property taxes from one year to the next. The Anchor program, which you've probably seen recently, where you get a fixed amount. There's a Veterans Credit, which goes to veterans. There's a separate program called the Senior Citizens Annual Property Tax Deduction, different program entirely. And there's also a deduction you get on your income taxes. The problem with these programs is they all have different income requirements. They all have different age requirements. They have different residency requirements, different application deadlines, and you get different amounts. So they're really all over the place. And just to make life even more fun, let's talk about having a new program called Stay NJ, which will begin in 2026. So let's talk about Senior Freeze first. Kathy, can you move to the next slide?
Do you see that?
There we go.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, Ellen's going to tell you about what you can get.
Okay, and by the way, there is a handout that Kathy's going to make available to you, and it's detailed information about each of these 5 programs, as well as the deadline dates, the help numbers, the websites, so you don't have to scribble anything down or take notes. The first program, and the reason we're starting with Senior Freeze, is that deadline is coming up the soonest. That's going to be on October 31st. And what do you get with Senior Freeze? You get a partial reimbursement of your past year's paid property taxes. So you get a check for the difference between what you paid last year and what you paid in your base year. And your base year is the first year that you qualified for all the eligibility requirements. So it's not as if it actually freezes your property taxes in the form of they give you the check. You still have to pay the property taxes first, and then you'll get a rebate back for the time that they were frozen. So, for example, for those of you who are just going to be applying for this year, you're going to be applying for the 2023 Senior Freeze. You're going to get the difference between your property taxes that you paid in 2023 and what you paid in 2022. So if property taxes went up from 22 to 23, let's say by $200, you're going to get a check for $200. And then 2022 is going to become your base year. So that next year, when you apply for the 2024 Senior Freeze and your property taxes go up another couple $100, now you're going to get the difference between the property taxes you paid in 2024 and 2022. So you're going to get 2 years. So it's really important that you file for Senior Freeze if you're eligible, because it puts you in the program and it essentially freezes your property taxes. So you're not going to be paying any higher than that base year.
Yeah, that next slide there, Kathy. Okay, yeah, I mean, a lot of people have said to us, well, it's not worth applying for Senior Freeze because I'm only going to get $100 this year, so it's not worth it. But it's not just this year. It's $100 this year. It's $200 next year. It's $500 in the third year, and it really mounts up. So how do you qualify for this program? Well, let's go through what the rules are for filing the form for this year, 2023. You have to actually pay, they have to actually pay your taxes for the 2022 and 2023. This is a rebate program, so you have to pay the taxes in the first place. Residency, you have to have owned and lived in your house on December 31st, 2019, and you still got to live in your house on December 31st, 2023. Okay. Your age, sorry, next slide, Kathy. Sorry, next slide.
And by the way, that residency is only a 3-year residency. They just changed that in the state law. It had been, you had to be a resident in the past of New Jersey for 10 years. Now, you have to own and reside in New Jersey for only 3 years.
Okay, so the third requirement is you've got to be 65 as of the end of December 2022. That's because 2022 is what Ellen said, your base year, or you have to have a disability, but we're assuming you're doing this because you're 65. And what are your income requirements? Now, these have gone up quite a bit recently, so you might qualify even though in the past you wouldn't have qualified. Last year, in last year's budget, they increased the income requirement to $150,000 for 2022, and it's gone up to $163,050 for 23. So that means that in 2022, you had to have less than $150,000 in income. Okay, 2023, you had to have less than $163,000 and change in income. What does income mean? Well, income here means pretty much everything you've got. It includes Social Security, it includes pensions, you name it, it's in the calculation. The only things that perhaps wouldn't be included are things like life insurance proceeds. But for this program, and it's different for other ones, for this program, income means everything. Why is it a funny number? Because it's 150,000 was passed in the statute, and it goes up each year in the same percentage as Social Security goes up. So it was 163,000 for 23. It'll go up again to probably around 167,000 when we get around to doing it for 2024.
It's the COA number that they use, and they increase your income, the income requirement based on the COA number.
Okay, can we go back to the live now, Kathy? Okay.
Okay, so how do you apply for this? Now, there's two types of people that are applying for senior freeze. Those who have already been in the program, and they would have been mailed a PTR2, and those who are applying for the first time, who are going to be using a PTR1. And some of you may have heard of something called the Blue Book. This is the PTR1 Blue Book for 2023. And it's kind of daunting. It looks like it's something like 25, 30 pages. But of that, the application is only 4 pages. The front is basic information, Social Security. The 2 middle pages go to putting your income and calculating your income based on what Peter had said, including your Social Security and any other income in order to be able to qualify. For the first-time filers, you'll be filling out a PTR1, and then you'll also be filling out something called a PTR1A. And that's a verification of your 2022 and 2023 property taxes that you've paid them. And you have to go down to the local tax office, and they will certify that you have in fact paid your 22 and 23 property taxes. You will put those two together, the PTR1, the PTR1A, and either a driver's license or some type of ID that indicates your age, and that's going to be sent to the state for your application for first-time applicants. You can do this online now. You'll need to upload the documents, the PTR form, the PTR1A form, and you'll need to upload your driver's license. For those who are applying again, who are already established in the program, already have a base year, you would have gotten your PTR2 in the mail. You probably got it back in February. You no longer have to fill out a PTR2A. You don't have to go to the local tax office to confirm that you in fact have paid your property taxes. You just need to complete the PTR2 and you're done. Regarding when you're going to get paid, when the checks come in, it all depends upon how soon you get your applications in. For those who have already gotten in their applications for senior freeze, you should have been seeing checks. If you've applied before June, you'll be seeing checks already. If you're just applying now in September, you should be getting your checks in December. And where do you get these blue books? You can either go to your local tax office. Most of the local tax offices do have these booklets in their office. Some of the senior centers also have some of the blue books. You can call the state, they will send it to you, or you can go online and you can download the form and you can download the whole instruction packet if you'd like. It's all there online. And Kathy will have that handout for you. That'll have the website addresses as well as the phone numbers on that.
Ellen said this isn't that intimidating. I think most people think it is intimidating. The form itself is only 4 pages, but you do need to sit down with all your income and work it out. But once you've done it once, 1 year, then the next year it gets a lot easier and a lot more straightforward. Kathy, next slide, please, and we can go on to the next program. Yeah, we did this. Okay, there we go. Now, this next program, you've probably already seen because you may have got a letter recently in the mail. This is called the Anchor program. And the Anchor program is the successor program to what used to be called Homestead Benefit. And at the moment, 2024, the application relates to the year 2021. And why is it 3 years behind? And the answer is because as the successor program to Homestead Benefit was 3 years behind. And when they launched this new program, for some reason, nobody brought it up to date. So we're 3 years behind with this program. So everything we're talking about here, we're talking about where you were in 2021. What do you get? If you're a homeowner, you'll get a check of up to $1,500. And if you're a renter, and this program applies to renters as well as homeowners, if you're a renter, you can get $450. And if you're a senior, you're over 65 back in 2021, then you'll get an additional $250. So
Kathy, next slide.
Next slide, please.
Kathy, the next slide.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
We can,
Okay.
thank you. As Peter said, Anchor program is for both homeowners and renters. So if you're a homeowner and your 2021 income was $150,000 or less, you're going to get $1,500. And if you're over 65, you're going to get another $250. So you're going to get $1,750. If your 2021 income was more than $150,000, but less than $250,000, you'll get $1,000. And again, if you're over 65, you'll get $250. But that age has to be that 2021 because everything is based on that. That is your base year, the 2021. And if for some reason, and there are people that are getting all of their, even more of their property taxes paid for between their anchor benefit and their senior freeze, they're only you can only get up to what you're actually paid in your property taxes. So they won't give you any extra to pocket. It's only about taking care of your property taxes. Next slide.
Did that forward? No, hold on. How's that?
That's perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Kathy. Okay, so for homeowners, how do you qualify for Anchor? You have to own and occupy a home in New Jersey that was your principal residence on October 1st, 2021. And you need New Jersey gross income less than $250,000. Now, what does that mean? When you fill out your New Jersey state income tax, there's a line 29. You need to go to line 29 of your 2021 New Jersey 1040 state income tax. And that's the number. It needs to be below 250,000. Now, the interesting thing about Anchor is Anchor does not include Social Security. Senior Freeze did. And that's because on New Jersey, when you file your New Jersey state income tax, they don't include Social Security. And they also don't include some pensions. So it is a different form of income calculation. The other thing is you don't need to be a New Jersey resident. So let's say you were a New Jersey resident right in 2021 and you own your home in October 1st. Let's say you sold it in 2022 or 23. You still are eligible to get an anchor benefit.
And we hear you. So somebody could move to Florida and we'd send them a check. I don't know why we're sending them a check to somebody who left, but we are sending them a check, and that's how it works at the moment. Just to underline something Ellen said about gross income, this is different tests for senior freeze and for anchor. Totally different tests of income. So you might qualify for one and not qualify for the other, but so you have to do the math for both. And that applying for one doesn't get you in the other program. You have to do everything separately.
Separate applications, separate filing dates, separate requirements. And oh, one other thing to note, the same limits apply to single people and married people when it comes to homeowners.
And the last thing to note here is that we talked about 65 to get the extra $250. But if you're under 65, you're still eligible for this program. This is not an age program for the $1,500. So if you tell your kids, tell your grandkids, they may well be eligible for this program if they owned a home or they rented in New Jersey back in 2021. So make sure they know about it as well, because they might be able to get $1,500. Kathy, we'll talk about renters. Next slide, please. Okay, here's renters. Now, if you're a renter, this is one of the only two programs where renters get property tax relief. You may say, well, why does a renter get any property tax relief? And it's because the state of New Jersey thinks that rent partially goes towards paying your landlord's property taxes, which of course it does. So they say it's roughly 18% of the rent goes along to towards property taxes. So renters get back $450 if they have less than $150,000 in income back in 2021. And if you're a senior, a person over 65 in 2021, you're eligible to get an extra $250. So you could end up getting $700 in total. If you earn over 100, if you made more than $150,000 in 2021, renters aren't eligible. So that's a bit different from homeowners. You don't get this benefit if you live in a tax-exempt building or if you live on campus. So students who live on campus, they don't get it. But if they rent an apartment downtown, they will get it. And renters in senior housing may actually now be eligible for this program. So if you're in senior housing or you're an owner or a renter, just check about this and see if you are in fact eligible. You might well be. Kathy, next slide. Okay, how do we get eligible for this program as a renter? You've got to have lived in New Jersey in your house on October 1st, 2021. As I said earlier, less than 150 grand in income based on this line 29 tax return income. You don't have to still be living in New Jersey. You've got to be named on the lease. So if you are named on the lease with a friend, that's great. You can both get the benefit. You've got to pay the rent. And the rental unit must have a separate kitchen and bathroom. This is something that's a throwback to the old statute, but that's what it says. I'm not quite sure why, but that's what it now says. And this, again, same rules, same income levels, all apply to single people and married couples.
Now, if you're just living together, you can get 2 anchor payments as renters. If you're married, you only get 1.
Yeah, so that's probably a lesson there somewhere, but I'm not sure what it is. Kathy, can we go back live a second? We're going to talk about applying. There we go. All right.
Okay. I suspect a lot of you by this point may have received an anchor confirmation letter in the mail. It came from the state of New Jersey. It said, if you applied last year for the 2020 anchor program and you received an anchor payment last year and nothing has changed, you don't have to do anything. So you just sit back and you're just going to wait for your check, which should appear maybe October, maybe November. We're told it was November. Last year, some of them started appearing in October. If there are changes in maybe you moved, different address, you're getting a check at a different place, or perhaps your bank account has changed, you move banks, you've got to get the state that change of information by September 15th. So that's coming up this week. You need to notify them before the checks go out.
I think that's a really big point. If you got the letter, but you want it to be sent to a different bank account or a different address, make sure you tell the state, because it's much harder to get these checks reissued. And as we're going to explain a bit later, the hotlines and the getting in touch with the state on this program in particular is very difficult. They just don't seem to have enough people answering the phone. So make the effort to get this done before the 15th if you possibly can.
Now, what happens if you didn't get a letter? There are a number of people out there that are going to be getting a green anchor benefit filing packet. You'll get a green one if you're a homeowner. You'll get a purple one if you're a renter. That mailer packet will contain your ID and your PIN number, and it will give you instructions on how to apply online. This year is different than last year. Last year, you could apply by phone. This year, you need to apply online. So when you get that mailer packet, go through the mailer packet. You'll just have to confirm your ID. They had a tremendous amount of fraud connected with this anchor program over last year. So the state has gone to a special ID program in order to have some level of verification as to who is applying for it. But again, not everybody's going to have it. You may just have the mailer piece. And what happens if you don't get the letter and you don't get the mailer? You can also apply either online or via paper. And again, you'll have the handout. It'll have the specific email address to go to. There's going to be, the rules are wonderful. The programs work for a lot of people, but there are a lot of exceptions to these. And the state does have a hotline. Unfortunately, that line is busy quite a bit. There are some regional offices. There are some senior centers, libraries that will also be able to assist you.
But all in all, this is an easier program to apply for than Senior Freeze. It's less cumbersome. And the idea of sending out a letter to show you that you're automatically enrolled in the program, that's, I think, a big step forward and makes life a lot easier for people. We're going to now talk about the third program today, which is the Veterans Credit.
And we do have some really good questions in the chat. We will go over those when the presentations are done. We'll include those with the with your questions. I'll ask them from the chat.
Okay, I know. Unfortunately, this year they're forcing everyone to move to the computer. But I assume everyone who's listening on this Zoom,
they're good.
You're
They're
good.
They're on it.
They're good to go.
They're good to go.
This is the third program. The third and the fourth program are both prospective programs. And what do I mean by that? The Senior Freeze and the Anchor program are already, they were retrospective. They're looking backwards. You paid your property taxes and then you got a rebate. You did that in senior freeze. You did that in anchor. When it comes to the veterans credit, the veterans credit looks forward. It's a forward. You're going to apply now and you're going to get a credit. This one's not in cash. You're going to get a credit on your property tax bill going forward. So you'll be applying in 24 for 25. So what can you get? You get an annual deduction of $250 from your property taxes, and that's for both veterans and their surviving spouses. And you no longer have to be serving during an active military time. They have changed, there was a constitutional amendment done back a couple years ago. And if you were serving in a military branch during peacetime, you would also be eligible for the $250 credit. There is 100% credit, and that's for if you were 100% disabled, and you would get full exemption from any property taxes. And that's for both veterans and their surviving spouses. Now, unlike the other two programs, this program is handled by the local municipality. Kathy, if you can move to the next slide. What that means is you'll be going to the local tax office to apply for this, and they will be adjusting your tax bill. So it'll be done by the tax assessor. Okay, how to qualify? You must have been honorably discharged. You must have owned the property for which the deduction is claimed on October 1st, 2024. You must be, and that's coming up, I'm doing these prospective, and you must be a legal resident in New Jersey on October 1st, 2024. There is no income for this. The surviving spouse must file documentation of service, which is called a DD-214. If any of you out there listening are military, thank you very much for your service. And the DD-214 is the honorable discharge form. If you can go to the next slide, in order to qualify for 100% exemption, you again must be honorably discharged, and you must receive your determination from the Veterans Administration that you have a service-connected disability and were declared to be 100% permanently and totally disabled. This is a very big process to do, but obviously it results in no property taxes. You again must also occupy the house as your principal resident and no income tax. And Kathy, you can go to live. To apply for this, as I said, you can get the form at the local tax office, or you can also go online and get the form. The veterans form is something called let's see, I should know this by the VSF. And again, this one is a one-page form. You bring it to the local tax office with your DD-214, and you can bring this anytime from October 1st through the end of the year, and they'll adjust the tax records for you. Because again, you're interested in 2025. If you miss the December deadline, a lot of the local tax offices will allow you to come in later and they'll adjust it. But again, it's done on the local level.
But you've got plenty of time now because it's only September. So, you know, between now and the end of the year, it's much better to get it done. And okay.
And again, and if you have any questions about how to fill out the form or getting the right paperwork, this DD-214, The local veterans organizations are absolutely wonderful. Kathy, I assume the people on this call are from counties all throughout New Jersey and towns throughout New Jersey.
Yeah.
Contact your local veterans organization, or you can always call the New Jersey Veterans Department, or you can even call the US Department. And again, those numbers are all in the handout.
Kathy, can we, next slide? Go to this slide. Great. We're going to talk about the fourth program now. So we talked about 3 programs already. We talked about the income test in Senior Freeze was one thing. There was a totally different income test in the Anchor program that we looked at your tax form. We know there's no income tax if you're a veteran. You can be a rich veteran or poor veteran, you still got $250. And this fourth program is called the Senior Citizens Annual Property Tax Deduction. And this is a completely separate program. Here you would get an additional $250 deducted from your property taxes. And this is also administered prospectively, meaning that when you apply in the last quarter of this year, you're going to get $250 off your property taxes in 2025. And this is administered by your local municipal tax assessor, the same office as the veterans. Next slide, Kathy. Now, how do you qualify for this one? Well, you got to live in your house on October 1st, 2024, and you've got to be living in New Jersey since October 1st, 2023. Sorry, next slide, Kathy. You've got to be more than 65 at the end of December of this year here, okay? So you'll be applying in October, and you may not be 65 till December, but as long as you're 65 by the end of the year, it's okay. Or you've been disabled, or you're a spouse of somebody who would have qualified. And then we get to income requirements. So this is a different income test from all the other programs we talked about. And in this income test, your annual income for 2025 can't exceed $10,000. Now that sounds like an awfully low number to me, but it doesn't include Social Security, and it doesn't include certain other types of state pensions. So if you're living basically on Social Security or a pension, and you've only got less than $10,000 in other income, you should look into this program and see if you can qualify for the $250 deduction. Okay, can we
And
go?
if you could go live for a
Yeah,
second.
go live, please.
And as Peter said, this is handled through the local municipality. The assessor will adjust your tax bill. It's a simple form. It is called a PTD. You will fill out the form. If you're eligible, you only fill it out once. And then the following year, you'll get a letter request in the mail where you certify that your income still remains at that level. And you'll just fill out that certification form and just send that back to the local tax assessor, and your property taxes, it will automatically show a credit going forward on the following year. When you apply for the veterans, that is also, you only apply once, and then you are finished. You don't have to come back every year with the veterans. With Senior Freeze, you have to do every year. With the Anchor, you have to do every year.
Next slide, Kathy. Okay, the last program we're going to talk to you about today, and sigh of relief, this is the last one. What can you get? Now, this is income tax, and we're always a little bit surprised that people don't realize that this exists. But what you can get on your income taxes is for homeowners, you can get a deduction from your income of the property taxes paid or $15,000, whichever is less. And this program also applies to tenants, renters, tenants. Okay, they get a deduction of 18% of the rent they paid during the year, or either of these groups of people can get a tax credit of $50. Now, the reason we were surprised was when we talked to people about this, people said, "Oh, I got my $50." But if you sit down and do the math, you'll find that for many people, taking a deduction of 15%, of $15,000 from your income gets you a lot more tax relief than $50 because you're not paying taxes on that amount of money. So it's well worth taking the time to do the math and work it out. There's a worksheet called Worksheet H, which is in the tax form to look at. And if you send your taxes out to an accountant, which I know a lot of you will, then make sure you ask your accountant, did he do the math? Did he check whether you got more with the deduction than you would get with the tax credit? Because we found a lot of people don't ask that question, and a lot of accountants just give you the $50. So well worth looking into. We're going to touch on
You
it.
could tell how you apply.
Well, you apply just in the normal way you file your income taxes. So you've missed it. Your April 15th has gone. You can always, of course, file amendments if you wish to. And
Or if you're on extension till October 15th.
Yeah, if you forgot to do it and you find it will save you some money, you can always amend to save yourself some money. But this may be something you want to look into when you file your taxes next year and you file your 2024 taxes. We're going to talk to you about a new program. So, Kathy, can we go and do the next slide?
Can we go live first before we do that? Oh, okay, no matter. This is okay. Just to put this into perspective, the senior freeze got you your property taxes frozen. They're saying the first year it could be like a couple $100. If you're in the senior freeze program for a number of years, the average is about $1,400. It could even be as much as $4,000, $7,000. We've heard all kinds of numbers.
I think the record we've heard is about 7,000. But they, if you think about it, that makes sense, right? Because I know it's a shock to you all, but property taxes in New Jersey keep going up. And so if you've been in this program a while, you find that your property taxes have, maybe doubled over 20 years, 25 years. So if you started at 65 and you're still in the program, God bless, when you're in your late 80s, you easily could be making many thousands of dollars in senior freeze.
And believe it or not, senior freeze started back in 1998. So a lot of people have been in it, and everybody's saying, well, how come I didn't know about it? But regarding Anchor, most of you are going to be getting some type of Anchor payment back, either renter, or if you're a homeowner, you'll be getting probably $1,750 back. So there's some sizable amount of property tax relief that people can see. And then, as we said, the other three programs are available, and the income tax, of course, is also available for everybody. Now, Stay NJ. That's what we keep hearing about. What is this program and when is it going to happen? Stay NJ was passed last year in 2023. It's not supposed to be scheduled to take effect until 2026.
After taxes.
So there's still time. It's not going to take effect until 2026. It's going to, according to the statute, it's going to give you property tax credit for half of your prior year's property taxes up to $6,500. So half of your property taxes up to $6,500. Okay. Next slide, Kathy.
So that sounds.
And who's going to be getting this? Those who are over 65, no residency requirement, and New Jersey gross income of less than $500,000. So that's twice as much as what anchor currently is. So it's $500,000. And the next slide. Sounds real good, doesn't it? One of the things, we have certain issues about this program. And one of the issues is people who get anchor and senior freeze are going to have those tax rebates deducted from the amount of the stay NJ. So we've spoken to people and they were very excited. They paid $4,000 in property taxes, and they thought they were going to get half of that back, $2,000, and then they were going to get $1,750 from anchor, and then another $500 or so from senior freeze. No, you only get up to half your property taxes off, and then an offset to what you're already getting on anchor and senior freeze.
So in New Jersey, we estimate there's between 150,000 and 200,000 people who already get more than half their property taxes paid through a combination of anchor and senior freeze. So they won't get anything from stay NJ, which means that where will stay NJ end up going? Well, basically, stay NJ money will find its way to people who have higher income and have higher property taxes. If you're not getting anchor and senior freeze, chances are that would mean that your gross income is over $250,000, which is a lot of money, and you're not getting anything. So we have to look at this and see where it's going. Basically, this was a program designed to help people stay in their homes. Unfortunately, it's going to go to people who are living in bigger homes with bigger incomes. That's what we're doing. This program isn't certain. There are a lot of changes already in the works. For example, Ellen said there's no residency requirement. Well, there actually is now an amendment before the legislature down in Trenton to make a residency requirement. There's moves to change the income levels down in this amendment. So all that has to be looked into. And there's also an amendment down there that says that 2 years of the anchor payments, not just for seniors, but for everybody in the state, anchor payments for 2023 and 2024 will be canceled, wiped out completely. Remember I said it was 3 years behind? Well, the idea is it would just be wiped out completely. And that is going to create all kinds of problems for people when they find they're not going to get 2 years worth of anchor payments. Finally, this Stay NJ program is subject to lots of preconditions. The biggest one that concerns us is that there's got to be a budget surplus in New Jersey of 12% before it kicks into effect in 2026. Well, in the history of New Jersey, as far as we can tell, there's never been a budget surplus of 12%. So whether or not this program ever gets off the ground, who knows? The one thing we don't think is good is that we launch these property tax relief programs, people rely on them, and then we cancel them. And so when you hear about Stay NJ, lots of questions to ask people who tell you it's going to happen. Lots of questions to ask whoever's touting it as a good idea going forward. So with that, why don't we go on to questions, Kathy, and we'll try to answer whatever people have.
You're on mute, Kathy.
That's better, right?
There you go.
So I think that a few of the questions in the chat go around basically, what if you moved? you've been in New Jersey and you moved, you downsized, you relocated in New Jersey. How does that impact you?
Are you over 60? Had you
Yeah.
qualified? You've qualified for senior freeze before.
Yeah, so if you were getting it and now you moved, what, does that mean you're not eligible? Do you start over again?
I believe that there's a 2-year wait in order for you to be eligible for senior freeze again.
Okay.
That's what the state had on their, on their website up as frequently asked questions.
Okay. And if people have a disability, and show proof of their SSI, do people with a disability show proof of SSI and or their SSDI benefit?
To be very frank with you, we've been dealing with the seniors in terms of disability. You have to show proof that you're getting disability. So whatever documents you have that shows proof of disability, that should be sufficient. And what I always tell people is, when in doubt, apply. The worst thing they could do is say no. So put in the application, make sure if you're applying for senior freeze, you want to make sure you get your application in before the October 31st deadline. So you file timely. If the state has a problem with your application, they can always come back to you afterwards and ask you for supplemental information.
Okay.
So definitely apply with the documents you have.
So it sounds like one of the questions from Jane is, someone hasn't participated in 6 years and has not received the PTR2. So if for whatever reason you skipped a year, you didn't do your PTR2, do you need to start over again?
You bet you do. That's the warning, and that's we don't make up the rules. These are the state rules. The state rules say you have to apply for these. You have to be eligible, and then once you lose eligibility, I think you lose your senior freeze. Now they're talking about you get a 1-year waiver because hey, you may have hit the lottery 1 year or something. You may have bumped up over that income level.
Yeah.
But you're going to be starting your base year all over again.
Yeah, just to go back to the moving question. If you've got Anchor is like just a snapshot. It's where you were living on October 1st, 2021. So if you've moved after 2021, you're still eligible to get your Anchor payment for 2021 as long as you lived in the house in New Jersey in 2021. So you could still do that, but just it's different. But they're two different programs. Different programs.
Okay. And I see a couple questions related to it. So if you moved and you started renting in 2023, you're not eligible for Anchor yet. It's still where you were in 2021.
Right. It's that 2021 date.
We're only up to 2021. So so you'd have to wait, assuming the program just carries on as normal, we wouldn't be up to 2023 till 2026. Okay. So of course, as I just said, there's a plan that they're talking about getting rid of it completely for 2023 and 24, but we'll see. We don't know. That hasn't been passed yet.
Okay. So somebody asked if you says if you no longer need to have the tax collector to complete the PTR2A, how do you verify the exact amount of property tax paid?
Do you know how much I want to believe you know how much you paid in your property taxes that year. It's how much you paid in 2023.
I mean, you can always go if you don't know.
You can call the tax collector
tell you.
And say how much were my property taxes in 2023. They'll tell you over the phone, but it saves you the trip of having to go down to the local tax office. I can't begin to tell you what this was like during the pandemic when people had whether it was a PTR1 or they were filling out the 1A or the 2A form. Everybody had to trudge down to the tax office. For those who are already in the program, they're accepting the fact that, you know, you're certifying that you paid the property taxes and these are your property taxes.
Okay.
When you fill out your income tax reform, you do this income tax form and you do the deduction, nobody certifies what you write down. I mean, it's sort of, I mean, it'd be very stupid to write down the wrong amount, but
Right.
it's sort of on the honor system until such time as somebody double checks you. And
Okay.
now, that of course is a bigger program. The PTR2A was really making you go through a hoop that was unnecessary because you're not going to lie about how many taxes you paid. It's pretty easy.
Mhm.
One less bit of bureaucracy.
Yeah, okay.
But-
Here's a good question. Do you have to be an American citizen to receive these, or just a New Jersey resident?
You just have to be legal resident.
It says legal resident of New Jersey.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about American citizen.
Yeah, you don't have this.
Okay, so somebody with a green card can, if they're paying their taxes, the property taxes, they can apply. Okay.
Yeah.
They'll take, if they're going to take your property taxes, they can give you back a rebate.
Okay. And then if you are, so if you're already receiving Anchor and you're planning to move, will that disrupt you? You start all over again?
Anchor, you don't start all over again. Only
Okay.
senior freeze.
The instant you're free to start all over
Yeah,
again.
actually, it's just a snapshot. So if you move,
You just have to make sure that the
Yeah.
state has your information. They have your correct address. So
Okay.
you get the letters and the checks, and you've got to make sure that the bank accounts are correct.
Yeah, no, just to go back, let's assume the program just keeps going as it is now. So October 1st, 2021, you lived in Maplewood and you moved in December to South Orange. Okay, then for 2022, you would still be eligible for Anchor. You'd just be eligible because you lived in South Orange.
Got it.
Okay,
Okay.
there's no residency requirement for Anchor. It's just a snapshot. Were you living in New Jersey at that date? Now,
Got
the
it.
other programs do have residency requirements. So you may or you may not make them because of like senior freeze, you wouldn't make it.
Senior freeze has a residency requirement.
Yeah.
And senior freeze, in order to collect on senior freeze for the 2023, you have to have been living in your home on December 31st, 2023.
Okay.
And I wonder why more people don't apply for these programs.
Yeah.
They've made them, they're so complex.
Right.
That's what you said at the beginning. You've got 5 programs we've talked about, and they've all got different rules. So
Yeah.
it's really difficult for everybody to understand what's going on. This handout that people can get from you, this thing, the handout Ellen mentioned earlier, that's got a summary of all the different rules. Each program is just a page per program, and you can get the real idea of whether you qualify. And but they're different rules, so it's very complex to try and come up with this code.
And on a wish list, if I had my wish list, I would love to freeze, once you become eligible for senior freeze, your property taxes instead of having to go through, your property taxes get frozen. You don't have to keep going through this bureaucracy. That would make things easier.
Yeah. So I have a very easy question and then a more complicated one. The easy one is for the senior tax deduction of $250, which I didn't even know about. They only deduct from your income. Wait, they only deduct from your income, your Social Security benefit or state pension, correct?
Yes.
No, they're not deducting it from that. The test for the senior citizens property tax deduction is you have less than $10,000 in income, not counting Social Security and state pensions. But you can't have, if you had both, you have to count one. It's just one. So for most people, it's Social Security. Most people have less. So a person who's living on Social Security and a small amount of investment income, less than 10 grand a year, they would qualify. But if you had 20 grand in investment income, you don't qualify.
Okay. This is the complicated one, which you might not be able to answer, but if you co-own with other people and not all are eligible for senior freeze, how would it work? Because
Are you husband and wife? If you're
it
husband and
doesn't
wife,
say, but I'm guessing that because I know it says for married couples, but what if you're domestic partners or you own a house with your sibling or another family member?
Sibling is the one we see a lot. It's you have to apply separately, and they do have a provision already for this that you get the percentage of ownership. So if the two of you were living together and you both had 50% of the house, and one of you's over 65 and one of you's under, person over 65 applies and gets 50% of the benefit.
in the application form,
Yeah.
there's a section on the application form that asks for percentage ownership. So that's
Oh,
where you'll see that.
But
Okay.
I think civil partners are the same as
Civil,
married couples.
civil unions
Yeah.
are the same as
Yeah.
married couples.
But
Okay.
the one we've seen quite a bit is brothers and sisters. Brother and
Yes.
sister living in a house together. You know, they inherited from their mother or
Right,
father.
right.
And they still living there.
Okay.
But it's only half. Remember, senior freeze is only one senior freeze per house. So if it's a brother and a sister, they get, each of them would be entitled to only half of that rebate on senior freeze.
Got it.
And same thing on anchor.
And then what about a look back? So if you find out that you were eligible for the senior freeze, let's say in 2015, can you establish that as your base year?
I think it's very well. You can try.
You could try.
I think it's.
I mean, there's 5 regional offices through the state of New Jersey, and I have heard situations where people will have all of their documentation
Mhm.
for 5 years, and they have to fill out 5 different sets of forms, and they went down there. Again, it doesn't hurt to try. Technically, the answer is no, but sometimes, depending upon who the person is, who you're showing the documents to, may be able to allow your eligibility. I know during COVID, there were a number of issues with timing, and
Yeah.
people couldn't get down to the state or couldn't fill them out on time, and they pushed the deadline a few times. But if you don't ask, you don't get. And the
Yes.
worst thing they could do is say no, but it is a lot of documentation.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real answer here is that the minute you turn 65, you should be thinking about these applications.
Yeah.
Because the sooner you get it in, the better. And every time you miss a year, you're missing not just this year. It's always going to be that $100. You're always going to get $100 less going forward because it's a cumulative thing, and your base year is going to be higher. So
Right.
the short answer on this is, as soon as you're 65, look into it.
Okay. So for people asking about handouts, we will email you this recording, and we're also going to email you a handout in the next couple of days. So someone asked, and also the comments about the common application, that is something that we do hope for, that eventually there will be one application with all of these. We are working on that.
We try not to rant about stay and J because
Yeah.
Ellen and I both tend to go that
We've been asking for an alignment
for
for
a long
the last few years.
Yeah.
But the question is, how do they do the alignment?
Let me just give you the short version. That when they did the Stay NJ was introduced, there was something called the Stay NJ Task Force that was proposed, and that's been meeting this year, and we've testified before it. Their job was to try and produce this common application. It's sort of a bit of a mess at the moment because they did try to align the anchor and senior freeze and stay and J into one form. But the problem is that when they haven't done it really properly. So they have different residency requirements,
Yeah.
different income requirements, and different age requirements. And how a common form is going to be produced
Right.
that requires seniors to answer questions on different programs, it's just going to be very, very
Right. Right.
And you're going to need to bring in your income tax returns for a couple different years.
Yeah.
very
I-
confusing. So until somebody really says we're going to make the age the same, the income test the same, and the
the
residency
residency the
same,
Yeah.
then I think it's going to be bad. We liked this anchor because anchor was you got the letter and it doesn't seem to require any bureaucracy. Right. So that's why we like that. Anyway,
So I think we can make this our last question. And I think this applies to a lot of people. You have senior freeze and then you renovate, like you put a half bath downstairs so that it's more age friendly. So you don't have to go up and down the stairs to the bathroom. And then your taxes go up because of that home improvement. Does that jeopardize your senior freeze? Because a renovation can increase your property taxes.
I don't know the answer to that question. That's a very good question. So
Well, why wouldn't your base year still hold? If you
yeah,
intuitively you had a base year and you improved
Yeah.
your things, but you had your base year. So let's say your base year was 2 years ago when
Yeah.
you added an elevator to
Right.
your house, but that's your base year, what it was back in 2021. So
Yeah. That's a really good question. I can see the confusion. I would just assume that it is. So like if your taxes go up, let's say your town would have raised your taxes 500, that would be included in the senior freeze. But if your taxes went up 1,500 because you added to the value of your house with the renovation, does that jeopardize? But
I
keep
think
going.
we don't think so, but I think the bottom line is we're not 100% certain. So we don't want anybody to build a new bathroom just because we said this on this call. So you need to check into that one to be sure, but it's not a problem most people have. But yeah, I mean, it would be great if it didn't change your amount for the base year.
And then our very last question is where to get info on the state said I don't qualify at this time, but I will with the freeze next year if I didn't own a home December 31st, 2019. So with the senior freeze, it has to be when you own the home, and pay attention to this, the details for when you have to be 65 and when you had to own the home.
yeah, because technically to be eligible for the first year of senior freeze, you're actually 67, not 65, because we're applying for the 2023 senior freeze. It's looking at your base year, which is going to be 2022. 2022, you had to be 65. In 2024, you're 67. In 2022, you had to have lived in your home for 3 years. So that was 2019.
Yeah.
3 years ago. And to add another little wrinkle, you still, with senior freeze, have to be in that home in 2020, December 31st, 2023.
Yeah.
So basically, to establish a base year, you gotta be with the first. That's where your taxes are quote frozen in. You got to be 65, and you've got to be living there in the 3 years. So in 2022, that's when it would count. 65, living in the house 3 years. That's why you go back to 19.
Okay.
All right. So if you haven't been living in the house long enough, well, just add 3 years to whenever you moved in. That's where the first year you can establish a base year.
I'm going to put it on the screen, the state website for the anchor information. People asked for numbers or where to get more. If you go on and if you just do a Google or search for New Jersey Anchor Program or New Jersey Senior Freeze, it should show up. But it's the New Jersey Treasury page. And I will put this in the email with the recording. And in that, it has the different property tax programs. I know there were a lot of comments about people not picking up the phone or not getting, it is difficult. Those positions are understaffed, but I will put this in the follow-up email with this, but it's the nj.gov/treasury. And there you will get the property tax relief programs, or you can search for it and it should pop up.
The state website is relatively easy to navigate and has a tremendous amount of information.
Plus the forms, it has the forms.
Plus it has the form, and it has all the forms. It has the form for the senior freeze, it has the forms for the anchor, it has the PTR 1A. But if you want to speak to someone live and you're in this hold pattern, sometimes they don't even bother with a hold pattern where, our lines are too busy, call back at another time.
Yeah.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 regional offices in the state. You can make an appointment online, or you can, a lot of them just have walk-ins. One's in Cranford, Fair Lawn, Freehold, Galloway, and Trenton. That's Cranford, Fair Lawn, Freehold, Galloway, Trenton. I had one gentleman who had a very, very specific question, and he needed to speak to the state about it. And they had to go through some past documents. He tried to reach them for a week, and I finally said, go to a regional office.
Okay.
He drove down there, and in 10 minutes, he had everything resolved.
Okay,
So,
I'll look those up and put them in the email too then.
Yeah.
So someone asked for we didn't have the number on that screen, but I will get that for you, Fatine. I will find that and get that out too, the number for Galloway. Okay. Yeah, we will get you all of those phone numbers. I did not know about this.
They don't, at least I didn't see any phone numbers for any of the regional offices. But you can do a face-to-face. That's what I meant.
Okay.
It's a face-to-face.
Okay. I'll hunt them down and find them.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, I think we covered a lot of, those were all really good questions. And I know it's still complicated, but it's so important to try it, to apply, to keep applying until you get it. What is it like they say with the lottery? You got to be in it to win it. You have to be in this.
Not only that, it's your money.
Yeah.
These
Absolutely.
are property taxes you paid. You're getting a rebate of what you've already paid. You've already paid that senior freeze property tax. You've already paid those anchor property taxes. This is a rebate.
Yeah. And Peter, I do have a new record for you. I know somebody in Maplewood who was in senior freeze since 2010, and they were getting $10,000 a year back.
Wow. There we are. Hey, well, you got to be in it to win it. You just said that. You're right.
Yeah.
And it does add up. I had one woman, and she was helping her mother do it. And she said, I spent hours doing this. And at the end of the day, we got $68 back. I said, well, the next year you'll get maybe $268, because property taxes in New Jersey generally don't go down.
Right. And if people were asking about going online, and it is difficult, it's very biased that you have to go online. Oh, somebody got the Cranford Regional Office on there. Thank you. You don't have to be in New Jersey to fill out the online application. So if you have a family member or a friend you trust, they can do it for you. Just make sure that it's somebody you trust, because you will be giving out information. You can ask your daughter, your son, your grandchild, your neighbor, but someone can do it for you. And that might help some people go through it. Okay, well, thank you so much. I will again look up the Galloway and the other offices and send this all out to everybody by the end of the week. Ellen and Peter, I really appreciate this. I know this was a lot more interesting than other times we've done this with a state officer reading a script. So thank you. I know that you guys deal with this. So you're very familiar with it. Again, we will get this out to everybody. Thank you so much. And we hope to see you all again soon.
And thank you for having us, Kathy.
Thank you very much. Okay.
And thank you, everybody, for paying
You have a
attention
good
and for
afternoon.
listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Thank you.